In this chapter, we're going to talk about ballasts and what they are. So what is a ballast? A ballast is a transformer that actually strikes the lamp and operates the bulb. So for instance, you have a couple different types of ballast out there on the market. Some are made differently, some are older, some are newer, some have newer technology. This one is called a magnetic coil ballast. And what it does is, inside of here, it has this coil that heats up and basically a capacitor, and that's what strikes the bulb, okay? So, but these are the old style ballasts. I mean, obviously they're a lot cheaper nowadays to get. They function a little bit better, but they produce a lot of heat, and that's the problem with these ballasts. The fact that they produce a lot of heat, you're trying to get rid of as much heat as you can in the garden itself. However, these, are cheaper. If you're working on a budget, you can get magnetic ballasts. They'll last, a long time, but eventually they'll start heating up and going bad. So here's, obviously the power plug. We also have another plug here on the top that you can see where you plug your reflector in. There's going to be two types of plugs here that are going to be plugged into your reflector. One is made by Sunlight Supply and another is made by a company called Hydrofarm, and they have adapters and extensions for both. Okay. So using a magnetic ballast, I mean, it's if you have to use it, but I would recommend electronic ballast instead, which I'm going to go over here in a minute. But magnetic ballasts do work. I mean, they do the job. They just take up space and they produce a lot of heat. So you may not want to go this route. Next, we have a digital ballast here. This is kind of a cheaper digital ballast, but it actually has some of the features that I'm looking for. One of those features on the digital ballast these days you'll see is this dimmer switch. This dimmer switch actually is a way to fine-tune your garden throughout the whole entire life cycle, whether it's with mallow halides or with your high-pressure sodiums. You can start at the lowest setting in the beginning of each stage. So let's just say I moved it from cloning into my vegetative room. You don't want to just blast them immediately with 1,000-watt light. It's good to have them get slowly adjusted to it, and over a course of maybe like 4 or 5 days, to slowly turn up this switch here and increase the intensity of the lighting. And by the time you're done, you'll have it on full intensity and the plants will be nice and happy. It's always good to slowly introduce things and not shock the plant by giving it just a massive amount of light or nutrients in the beginning, especially coming out of the cloning stage. When you move it into the flowering stage, same thing. You can use an electronic ballast and be able to slowly increase the frequency of light and the intensity of the lighting to be able to introduce it to the light instead of actually just shocking it with the light. Some of the cool things about the ballasts out nowadays that are electronic is the fact that you're able to strike both bulbs. I mean, I could just use this one ballast and be able to strike a metal halide bulb and a HPS bulb. Because they allow you to do that, you're able to, it's very versatile, You can also do things like take these and just mount them to the wall. Instead of something like this that gets really hot, I could take this and mount it right to some plastic. Nothing will happen, it'll be fine. They don't really get that hot. They're RF shielded. They definitely work really well. They won't mess with any other digital instruments in the room, such as controllers or anything like that. They're pretty much the industry standard for today for most gardeners. I mean, almost every gardener has an electronic ballast now. A lot of people don't even use magnetic ballasts anymore, but they are cheaper and you can use those if you're running on a budget. There's different types of manufacturers that make electronic ballasts. Lumitech was pretty much the first one when they came out. They're like a really big hit. They had some problems with them, but they eventually worked all that out. And then, all these other companies started springing up. So now you have quantum ballasts, you have next gen ballasts, you have Solace Tech ballasts, which are really good. There's all kinds of different types of ballasts out there, but essentially it's the same exact type of model when it comes to either having a fan or being able to strike both bulbs, or even this dimmer switch. This dimmer switch is really popular. They can also, with the dimmer switch, I mean, not on this one in particular, but you can actually increase past 1,000 watts by 10%. You can actually increase the intensity of the lighting by 10% and make it even brighter, which will produce more results. One thing you want to do though is always change your bulbs out every 2 to 4 months, because these things will eat up the life of the bulb pretty quickly. So every 2 to 4 months, even though if your light looks the same, you want to change it out just to make sure that you're getting the appropriate amount of lumens for your plants. So the pros and cons of ballast: obviously you don't want to use a magnetic ballast if you're worried about heat or you're trying to mount it somewhere. They do produce a lot of heat, so you want to try to be careful of that. If you have to use magnetic ballasts and you're on a budget, it's okay. They do have some really nice magnetic ballasts out there nowadays. I would primarily stick with digital ballasts just because they don't produce a lot of heat, they work more efficiently, and you're able to strike both bulbs with it and able to use any type of wattage or voltage with it. Some ballasts nowadays, you can change bulbs out in them too as well. They allow you to do that to where you can use 250 or 400, but mainly with the dimmer switch, that's one of the most important features of an electronic ballast, just because you can fine tune your lighting intensity. So that wraps it up for ballasts.